Hello and welcome back to my review series on novelty board games. Since I started this show, every game I've discussed has one thing in common. They're all fucking old. The most recent game I reviewed was released in 2001, so I think it is well past time that I took a look at something a bit more current. And today we're going to do just that. So what exciting new property did I pick out?
One of the most innovative forces in modern entertainment, David Bowie. The world of Labyrinth.
A game based on an 80s movie, of course. Now, Jim Henson's Labyrinth celebrated its 30th anniversary in 2016, so the board game production company River Horse released a board game adaptation to coincide with it that year. Now, acute viewers of this show should know what initially drew me to this game.
David Bowie.
Right. But even more acute viewers might remember that I once said this. And YouTubers, let's put Labyrinth with the Phantom Menace and Troll 2 in the over-reviewed category. Let me be clear. I was talking about the movie there, not the game. So I'm not going to be talking about the movie at all today. Just the game, that's it. So here's the thing about the movie. I love David Bowie, and I love Jim Henson. Ergo, I absolutely love Labyrinth. I think it's a wonderful film that hits that sweet spot of being able to appeal to both adults and children. Musically speaking, it's not Bowie's best work, but that's not to say it's bad. And the practical effects and elaborate puppetry are just phenomenal. But it is Bowie's iconic performance that puts the film over the top.
If she ever kisses you, I'll turn you into a prince.
You will?
Prince of the land of stench.
Now remember, adapting a movie to a tabletop board game is tough. Most of the games I've discussed before failed at that. So let's see how this one does. Here's Jim Henson's Labyrinth the board game. Roll 'em. Alright, the first impression is a good one. The box art is just stellar. You have a look at where the game is set, you have all the characters here on the side, and you have a nice looking title card. And if there must be a corporate logo, it is small and off to the side. Very unintrusive. This is how you package a game. The game pieces are also quite good. The film's 5 main characters are represented by these well-detailed plastic figurines.
Who are you?
There's Jerath, Sarah,
Hoggle. It's a Didymus.
And Ludo. Plus, there's a nice timepiece.
You have 13 hours in which to solve the labyrinth before your baby brother becomes one of us forever.
As well as some placards with character details, cardboard discs, a deck of cards, and 6 separate die. In short, there's some production here. They actually put effort into this presentation, and that goes double for the game board. Just look at this. It's a beautiful representation of the Labyrinth, packed with plenty of references to the film. Absolutely excellent work here. We're off to a good start. I love this presentation, but the heart of any game is how it is played. So let's get started. First, the game is designed for specifically 4 players. You can play with less, but it makes the game a lot harder. And that's because this is a collaborative game, not a competitive one. The 4 players are all on a team, versus the game, which is represented by Jerath. A 5th player can play as Jerath, but that role is so limited, I would honestly advise against it. So the game is split into 2 phases, the first of which is the Labyrinth, represented here by the spaces on the outer rim of the board. Each turn, a player rolls their dice and moves in either direction to land on these spaces. When a player lands on an empty space, they draw a Labyrinth card, which represents a challenge. The players then follow the directions on the card and resolve it via dice rolls. The goal of this stage of the game is to draw as many Labyrinth cards as possible to place on open spots on the board, because somewhere in the deck is the Entrance to Goblin City card. When that card is drawn, the players are able to move on to Phase 2 of the game. Before that, just a few more points on Phase 1. If you fail at any of the tasks from the cards, you will take damages to your willpower, which is effectively your health bar in this game. If you run out of willpower, you are banished to the oubliette, where you sit out a few turns to regain your strength. One way to prevent this is to occasionally rest, which means to sit out your turn for a chance to gain additional willpower. Resting does, however, come at a cost. This is where the clock comes into play, as this game is timed. The Goblin Clock only allows 13 rounds for the whole game, so you need to draw out the Entrance to Goblin City card as quickly as possible to save time for Phase 2. This is also why it's essential to have 4 players, as they will give you the most opportunities to draw cards. Okay, now let's go to Phase 2. Again, once the Entrance to Goblin City card is drawn, you can move to Phase 2, which is obviously the Goblin City. In this phase, you set Jerath in his castle and place the goblin pieces in their assigned spaces. All that happens now is a series of brawn tests between the players and the goblins, which are naturally decided by dice rolls. This is where Ludo becomes essential, as he has the highest brawn level. Once the goblins are clear, you can proceed to Jerath's castle. Now, when I say you, I mean whoever is playing as Sarah. Only she can confront Jerath.
Well then, come on.
No. I have to face him alone.
But why? Yes.
Because that's the way it's done.
Although I do like to believe there is an alternate universe where David Bowie tries to serenade and seduce Ludo.
There's such a sad love deep in your eyes, it kind of held you.
Sarah faces Jerath by, you guessed it, dice rolls. She can roll as much as she wants, but remember, at this point of the game, the Goblin Clock is likely down to its final hours, which means Sarah will really only have a couple of shots at winning. If she does, the game lets the player have a bit of fun by reciting the words from the spell card, by memory if possible. I'm sure that some Labyrinth nerds have that memorized, but I can't say the same. Klaatu, Verata. Finally, if you've enjoyed all this, there is an expansion pack you can buy that includes 5 new figurines to replace the cardboard goblin pieces, some new cards to add to the Labyrinth deck, and a sheet with some new instructions to make the game a bit more challenging. That's cool, but with such a tight time restriction, this game is hard enough.
How are you enjoying my labyrinths?
Oh man, this is tough. I really wanted to like this game more than I actually do. The inescapable problem with this game is that the gameplay is really just dice rolls. Dice rolls to move, dice rolls to fight, and dice rolls to rescue the baby. There's a variety of dice rolls, but it is still just dice rolls. Now, I know you can say Dungeons & Dragons and other RPGs are ultimately just dice games too, but in those, you can customize your characters and make decisions in your own adventure. In this game, the characters are preset, and the setting, while nicely presented, is not terribly expansive.
I am exhausted from living up to your expectations.
But look, this isn't all bad. There's a lot of great stuff here. Like I said, the pieces, the board, the whole presentation is excellent. Great send-up of the movie. You can tell they put genuine effort into this. More importantly, however, is that the structure of the game mirrors the plot of the movie. Every card in the deck, every corner on the board, and every page in the instructions have direct references to the plot of the film. Also, the 2 phases of the game effectively capture the 2 main settings in the movie. This is extremely impressive. Adapting a movie to a board game is hard, as all my previous reviews demonstrate. But it is quite clear that the makers of this game took a great deal of time and effort to get that part right. It is just too bad they didn't focus a bit more on the actual gameplay.
Damn.
Ultimately, it's the rare game that gets the adaptation part right, but kinda drops the ball on the gameplay.
Then how about upping the stakes?
Maybe I'm not being totally fair. There are some ways in the instruction manual and expansion that make the game a bit more challenging, but I was never inclined to do that because the time restriction is just so limiting. I wonder if you would fix the game by just ignoring the clock. But then again, that would really alter the game and take away from the adaptation aspect.
That's what I thought.
And you know what? This is the type of thing they should have figured out in playtesting.
I have been generous up until now, but I can be cruel.
I wouldn't recommend this game to everyone, but if you're a devout fan of the movie, you will appreciate the presentation and adaptation elements of the game.
You say that so often. I wonder what your basis for comparison is.
And because the gameplay is simple, I think this is a fine game for younger fans as well, especially now because you can find some rather affordable copies online. Now this wasn't River Horse's only attempt to adapt the Jim Henson universe, so join me next time for a look at their next creation. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Look, I didn't steal anything, but if it'll set your mind at ease, then have a look around. By the way, have you ever seen Labyrinth?
No. Why?
No reason.